I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm David Rist. I'm the program director here at the Manufacturing Export Enhancement Cluster. And I'd like to welcome you today to Measure, Manage to Prosper. Webinar today is going to be on connecting technology, importance of measuring time, planning is everything, and operational visibility, one version of the truth. And I won't get into that. I could talk lots about that one. And the need for continuous improvement. So that'll be the other one that we'll be talking about today. Just a couple little house cleaning items before we get started. If this is the first time on one of our Me Cluster webinars, check out our website and our current events. We have a number of different events that are happening here this month and next month. Obviously, there's a big one, and we'll be talking a little bit about it in this presentation. Both John and Paul will be at the Lean conference at the Smart MTX on May 15th. They're going to be headlining, and so you'll be able to come and meet them in person. They're going to be doing a presentation a little bit similar to this, but it's going to go a lot deeper. And so if you've got questions about what we're talking about today, please come and chat with us. Come see us. So a little bit about our presenters. For those of you who have not met Paul on one of our webinars or in person, Paul is our digital transformation expert. He brings 40 years of experience in manufacturing, technology, industries. He's co-founded a number of different companies. I would call him the incurable entrepreneur. And that, I think, permeates through his entire life in terms of how he approaches things, which is, I think, a wonderful thing. So he currently resides in Ontario, and he's also involved with a number of other activities, including the London chapter of the Innovators Alliance. Paul also has some connections out here in Alberta, and has some roots out here. So we'll say thank you to having Paul on today. And John Predish. John has over 35 years worth of ERP experience. I've had the privilege of getting to work with John on some projects. So he's worked 17 years with Epicor Kinetic Partners and is a premium platinum partner. He has been in Profit Magazine for Fastest Growth Firm for 7 years. John's practice with ERP implementation and integration. They leverage a lot of Six Sigma principles in what they do, and I just consider it a real privilege to have John here today. I think you guys are going to really enjoy his talk, and really enjoy kind of his perspective on change management, implementing new systems, and process improvements. So I'd like to say thank you in advance to having John host today as well too. So without any further ado, I am going to pass this over to Mr. Paul Hogedorn. Take it away, Paul.
I'm going to be dealing with connecting on leveraging existing connection technologies to start getting things connected and get the information off your plant floor. I'm also going to be talking about the importance of measuring time. So it sounds like a simple thing, and we think we're all doing it, but I'm going to dive deep into this measuring time aspect, because time really is money. And planning, I'm going to take it to the point of planning, because planning is key. I'm just going to use a little analogy. In the automotive industry, they say if you fix a problem in design, it's a penny. If you fix it on the production floor, it's a dime. If you fix it on the showroom, it's $1. But if you have to fix it on the customer's driveway, it's $10. So that speaks about the importance of planning. Most of the biggest impact that you'll be able to make to your operation is not remedial at the back end, it's on the front end. And that will lead perfectly into what John is going to talk about. So the first thing, we're going to leverage connected technologies to get started. So you're going to leverage connected technologies, and there's plenty of them available. They're not difficult. It's not complicated. It's very easy to get started by connecting your machines to measure your machine's performance, engage your workers. It's called connected worker technologies. There's many different really good, effective platforms available. And then the last one is streamlining your business systems. Most companies have developed to the point where they'll have some business systems on the front end of their operation and the office end, and completely different business systems on the back end. And through the course of the front end of this presentation, I hope you'll see the value of connecting your business systems together so you have streamlined business systems. But the goal is always the same. The goal is always make things easier, make things faster, make things better. And that applies to two things. That applies to your production and your product on the plant floor, actually how you build the product, but it also applies to the technology that you adopt or adapt or bring into your business. Even the adoption and adaptation of new technologies should make things easier, faster, better. And in my opinion, it's a red flag should be raised anytime you don't tick off all three boxes: easier, faster, better. So the first thing, connecting machines is quite simple. So you can connect machines, older machines, new machines. You can connect machines that have been networked already or networked enabled. You can even connect older machines. The oldest machine that I'd ever connected to a data collection system was made in 1914. And I connected every machine in a mill that was launched in 1928. So every machine can be connected quite easily today. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. So people connect machines basically related to time. They're looking for uptime. They're looking for downtime. They're looking for takt time. And they're looking to measure cycle time. So time is important in the machine measurement. The other things people look to and measure connecting their machines is actual empirical cycle counts and part counts and run rates. But all of those things involve measuring time. Connected worker technology, it's a term that you've been hearing a lot lately, but it covers everything from digital or visual work instructions. It covers instant dashboards for instant understandings, checklists. Today, they've been often done with pencils and papers on Excel spreadsheets that you might just click off or write in. Well, all of that can be easily digitized using connected worker technologies. Safety, if you have remote workers and you want to keep track of where your workers are, how long they've been in certain places, how many of them are together. Connected worker technology helps for that. And then and-on. So if you're not familiar with the term and-on, it's an automotive term, and it basically means providing a means for an operator to call for things like maintenance or a quality inspection, or they need more material. All of those technologies basically you can call connected worker technologies, and there's many different options that are available and ready for you to deploy today. The four common objectives then of connected worker technology is basically you want to get your work instructions to folks. You want to get the newest work instructions, the accurate work instructions. You want to be able to digitize the checklists so you're not writing pencils and paper and just storing binders and binders of information that you can't do any analysis with. You can't do any data dive or derive any insights from, but digitize them, and all of a sudden you have those insights and you can do that analysis. And on calls right now in a lot of factories are push buttons and lamps, but there's no reason that they can't also send texts, send email messages. You can't start keeping track of how often certain calls have been made at certain stations. What is the response time, not just the resolution time, but what is the response time? And most importantly, engagement. Connected worker technology should engage your workers better, so the workers are more than commodities providing labor, but the workers are part of your process, part of your solution, part of your company. I say that an engaged, informed, and empowered worker is a far more productive worker, and connected worker technology is available today, easy to deploy, and there's no reason not to get started with that. The last thing I'm going to talk about the connection is connecting business systems. And here I see in many plants up the front of the office has their own systems. They have their own accounting systems, their own customer relationship management systems, their own bookkeeping systems. And by the time things make it to the back, to the shop, a lot of the work done in the shop was done on Excel spreadsheets, done on templates, done on things that were created by the folks in the back, the folks on the floor. Often the folks on the floor have to work with the systems created in the front office, but it doesn't help them do their job, so they create their own tools in the shop, and they actually run two things. But you lose a lot of advantages doing it that way. One of the disadvantages is that things can change in the outside world, and they don't change on the plant floor until meetings are held. So you have the need for lots of meetings involving lots of people, where if you had a connected business system, changes that get made in the marketplace or by the customer or upfront by the sales team, make it dynamically back to the shop, eliminating time, eliminating waste, and making things easier. So measuring time in connected or integrated business systems, there's all sorts of additional and great and powerful things that you can measure time-wise in your operation when you do have a connected or integrated business system. Lead time, wait time, and I'm going to go a little deeper on wait time, delivery time, and here's a new one, a new one for many, cash conversion time. So these things all of a sudden become measurables when you have a connected, integrated business system, and these metrics can drive your system, your business forward. So I'm going to talk about wait time here. I've been asked over the years to get involved with helping many companies look at things like uptime and downtime, and the conclusion that I came to after many years of doing that is the time that a product or piece of steel is on the machine is usually very, very small relative to the time in between when that material is on the machine. So in this particular case, this is an example where parts or material were on the machine for 300 minutes, but in between processes was over 600 minutes. So over 67% of the time, in this particular case, the product was stalled on the floor somewhere waiting for something to happen. So an improvement on uptime on a machine is marginal compared to an elimination of dead time. And this is in a production shop. If I was to look at project-based shop, I would see projects that are in the building for 6, 9, or 12 weeks, but the actual hands-on time is only 2 or 3 weeks. What's the difference between the 6, 9, or 12 weeks and the 3 weeks? Well, it's wait time. Eliminating the wait time increases your capacity. So wait time is waste. It's very, very costly waste. Lost production is wasted capacity. Cash spent on material work in process is money that's out of your pocket before you get to convert it to cash. It's wasted cash. Human resources is a big problem today, skills, but having people work on the wrong thing at the wrong time is wasted labor and skills. And that is that's a commodity and in high demand. So you don't want to waste labor and skills. Semi-completed jobs have to be stored, moved around. It's wasted space. I'm in facilities where 45 to 55% of the facility is consumed by basically warehousing, work in process. With rents going up, if you want to either decrease the size of the facility you're renting to save rent, you got to look at this. If you're looking at growing your company, but you don't want to add more units, rent more units, or build more space, you have to look at this. Jobs stored on the floor gets damaged, lost, or they get changes to the order and the work has to be done again. So wait time is a killer on quality as well. Wait time, I say, is a silent top and bottom line killer, but most people don't measure wait time. And John is going to be speaking about to this. He's going to be using an expression that I really like, and that is what gets measured gets improved, If you're not measuring your wait time, then you're not improving one of your biggest top line and bottom line killers. What is cash conversion time? It's very simple. It's the time between when an order is received and when the product is delivered. This is key if you want to increase the capacity of your company without adding people or without adding equipment. Start measuring your cash conversion time. Shorten your cash conversion time, you increase the capacity of your operation. What is upstream time? This is another thing that's critical to measure. Upstream time is all the time that gets spent before the job hits the floor. It's all the time between receiving an order and the job hitting the floor. It includes engineering, approvals, ordering materials, other things. And I see this often in many plants where if they have 6 weeks to deliver a product, they might use up 3 of those weeks on the upstream stuff without really measuring it. And by the time the product hits the floor, it's already behind schedule. And the panic and the stress created by not taking care of your upstream time. So upstream time impacts production time, and upstream time is often unmeasured. Wasted upstream time goes unnoticed until it hits the plant floor, and then when it hits the plant floor, there's all sorts of added tension and stress, and it affects quality, delivery, and workflow. Another expression that I like to use a lot is failing to plan. Basically, is planning to fail. So I'm going to conclude my part of the presentation by talking about, just reiterating the 3 bullet points out of the 6 that we're talking about. Connecting is easy. It's not difficult to connect. If you need any help or if you have any questions in this regard, consider me a resource. Measuring time is critical. If you're not measuring time, if you're only measuring the granular time on the plant floor, but you're not measuring time overall, you're not getting out of your business what production-wise and profit-wise what you could. And then the last point, at this point I'm going to turn it over to John, is planning is everything. You can be making corrections remedially after the fact, but you can make far bigger impact if you made your improvements earlier on with better planning. And on that note, I'm going to give up the screen and let John go into detail on the planning.
Let's dig into operational visibility. A lot of what you just heard was ways of capturing information and tracking, and how do we put that into use? Well, when it comes to operational visibility, one thing for sure, manufacturers today need to really make smart investments that help them increase quality, improve efficiency, energize that production process, and reduce costs. And if you think about what manufacturing does, it's not about just accounting, and it's not just about purchasing, and not just about fabricating. It's about pulling these things together, all of these departments. And so it's a holistic challenge that faces the manufacturer today. And, the longstanding principles of business is, understanding what measuring is. What's measured improves. Peter Drucker, famous manufacturing and operational educator and author. Tom Peters as well said, what gets measured gets done. And Canadian entrepreneur Frank Hasenfratz, the CEO or founder of Linamar, he said, you truly cannot improve something if you don't measure it. And I was witness to that personally as I asked him about his Fitbit years ago. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but his heritage and his family and his business moves on. And, learning from these great people that had great insights, the big question is, why is that important? And how do I make it important for my business? And so, some of the impacts out there is, it is the responsibility of a business to plan its resources, its assets, its people, its machinery, understanding the costs that are fundamental to the organization, identifying those resources and where they're needed and how to assign them effectively, Tracking costs. If we're buying things and there's variability of the cost and landed cost and the labor effort it takes, it's a good chance you quoted that business at a certain price. You need to monitor how close you are at all times, because that could turn you into a charity rather than a business if you're not in control of that. And so, tracking beyond just operational efficiency. There's operational efficiency. There's different ways of looking at departmental. A lot of people ignore the front office, and sales, administration, engineering, all of purchasing. All of these people are highly paid, and to keep them efficient is part of the job. And so managing risks. Some of you have high compliance products that need lot serial traceability. You need to track it through. It might be a safety item. And ultimately, it's essential, right? So we know that these are fundamentals, and this was actually taken from a company that offers capital and investment in manufacturers. So if you're ever looking to value your business, it's well known amongst those who put a price on your business as to how well it's being run. So in simple terms, everyone out there, every manufacturer simply needs to cost, track, and schedule their operations. But, at the heart of this is, can you really answer where that one version of the truth is? Do people find themselves in meetings presenting and bringing data, and we're not sure where it came from? It was on a spreadsheet. It was collected in a haphazard way. There's no consistent process. In fact, the preparation for the meeting was a project in itself, going off and gathering up information to make a decision, and it took a lot of time to go research it. I believe that what we're going to talk about today is going to give you some insights to the fact that you may not necessarily need that kind of Herculean effort to get to your data. And so that shift, that operational visibility, is really, this shift of requiring data to support decisions. It needs to be accurate. It needs to have insights that allow you to understand what the next step is. Once you have that data and you trust it, and everybody in the room doesn't argue about the source of the data, it's about, okay, what are we going to do about it? And so your ability to be agile and turn that into a reprioritization and move forward with the resources that you have. And then really, at times, there's going to be where you really need to drill down, and you need to be able to have deep insights into the impacts. What's that going to cost us if we continue? And put that in the hands of the right people who can override or shift or make sure that that action's taken. But not really a one-off project. It needs to be a consistent approach. So as we mentioned, everyone needs to cost, track, and schedule their operations. That's machines, materials, labor. But I'll add to that supply chain, expectations with customers. All of that needs to be managed. And so when a shift happens or something happens in the operations, how do you communicate it, and who has to know about it? And what's the most efficient way of communicating it? So really producing the right products at the right time, no kidding. We can't remain profitable if we're not doing that. As you just heard that if you're building the wrong products and building up inventory, not a good idea. And Paul highlighted that as a challenge. But really, your most important resource is your people. And today, to attract talent, to actually have people feel like they're impacting the business, we need to make them efficient, and we need to have the tools. And so empowering your people with the tools to make these decisions and to be able to act on it is really key. And it's no longer a nice to have, it's table stakes. I've worked with companies where they're struggling hiring, but a lot of it revolves around the fact that the employee or potential employee learns that their job will be to populate a spreadsheet and then pass it on to somebody else, or do some analysis that they can't really impact because it's all happened already. So this really leads us to a place of continuous improvement. Well, what does that all mean? If I've got the data, what am I doing about it? And how can I do something about it? And so when we look at, we don't want technology investments for technology's sake. We want to make sure that they're affecting change. And, at the heart of continuous improvement is customer satisfaction. The number one most important person in the equation of a manufacturing company is the customer. Are they willing to pay for it? And will they continue to order from us if we do a good job? And so that means you're improving your products, you're improving your processes, your systems, which control those processes. Ultimately, your service levels increase. And if you reduce costs, your profit will go up, which will in turn empower and create value for your stakeholders. There's no point in staying in business if you can't make money. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really not a one and done. Measuring customer satisfaction needs to be continuous, and continuous improvement enables the ability to most efficiently measure. So how do we do this? Creating a culture of continuous improvement is really important. And when you think about identify, what is the opportunity in the workflow that we're dealing with? Where's the challenge? How could we move into a plan phase where we plan to improve it? How do we execute that improvement? And how do we continually review it? And then once you've done that, you start over again and it becomes this continuous cycle. So as I said earlier, if you could make this as part of your culture and not an event, it really becomes part of your regular cycle. And so I'm going to show a little later some dashboards and how companies are measuring and managing. You saw some of what Paul had shown, highlighting colors. And the big question I hear from my clients is, how much effort do I have to go through to get that kind of dashboard? And the right answer is very little. And very little if you're willing to change some processes through the company where we're collecting things consistently, making things become part of that daily, weekly, monthly cycle. And so at that point, you've got a robust database that can be analyzed. But if you're not dealing with the idea that that if you're not creating a consistent data collection experience for your staff, then it's easy to forget, oh, in this case, I do something different. So that consistency is really important. It also leads to accuracy, because we shouldn't have people dropping out and choosing not to participate in it. It needs to be part of the culture. So, continuous improvement is really rooted in problem solving and, defining that problem, analyzing it, looking at those solutions. But it's also about data you can trust. And if you can't trust the data, it's all for naught, or at least you're only partway there. And if you're only partway there, that data, moving back into those meetings where people don't trust the data, you might as well not have the systems and the processes in place. So it comes back to, is this the job? Does the job require people to collect data? And I think everybody should realize that it's not the tail wagging the dog. It is your company, and you need certain things to happen to stay in business, which does directly impact those employees. So, as you look at your priorities, and take those priorities, shift to a data-centric environment, and recognize that you could then have a real-time information system. You've got new hires that can realize that expectation of exciting tools and ways to analyze and manage the business. And by reinforcing the need for good quality data, that's data that is accurate, you're going to be in a better place, not just collecting data, but understanding what a data-centric model looks like. So what do we do with all this data? How do I put it to use? And, today will be a little bit about how enterprise resource planning can bring value to make that all more efficient. So the high-level benefits of an effective enterprise resource planning is really an optimization. So that continuous improvement and moving it through its paces. So there are models out there that just collect financial data and inventory and shipping so that we can invoice. I'm talking about an operational system that helps every aspect of the business. And when we put that in place, you're controlling costs, you're engaging people efficiently, you're getting to that improved customer satisfaction goal, and ultimately increasing the outcomes around better decision making. So we took that model earlier in terms of that circle and the bullet points, and I just wanted to apply, defining the problem. How could ERP help? Well, visible metrics that you'll have by department will show when things are out of control and create an alert. Red, yellow, green, a dashboard, a graph. When is the process out of control? Are we reporting too much scrap? Are we paying too much for that vendor's part? Why are we over on labor? There's lots of answers to those questions, but highlighting the condition is the first step in improving it. So the next step is, how do you analyze that problem? Well, if you have to create a project to go off and find out what the problem data is around the problem and what are the facts and figures of it, you could be missing the whole point in itself, in that you're spending time jumping into little projects and it's not a continuous improvement mindset. And so to have a consistent way of capturing that data, you'll then be able to just drill into it at any time. It's always there for you because you've been reporting consistently. And then, select the solution you want. Well, when you go to select or design a new process and implement it, it's about setting up procedures and workflows that you can then manage with systems. And then ultimately, going back to monitoring and adjusting, we're back to reviewing metrics. And when things are out of control, go back to defining the problem, and it becomes that circle again. And so, presenting good, valuable data is what an ERP system should be able to do for you in today's world. So as I mentioned, or alluded to, it really touches all the major areas of the business. So we're talking about, customer service and CRM, sales management as I move from quoting to orders and creating demand in my system for customer requirements, product management for engineering, project management for tracking, unique one-off projects for my customers, planning and scheduling for our shop, managing those resources, making sure the materials and supply chain supply is there. Production management, what happens when it hits the floor? What are we expecting? We've got a schedule. Are we making the schedule? We have standards. Are we hitting those standards from a cost and a time and a productivity perspective? And then, many companies, some of the things they add to that whole model is, I need to be able to manage either services outside my four walls when I install or deliver equipment, or it could be I need to maintain my equipment to manage my uptime. When was the last time we did a breakdown on that machine? Are we past the regular service interval? Are we going to start building scrap as a result of not maintaining our equipment? And then there's the human side and the financial side. So it's all integrated in an ERP system. So on the right here is probably my favorite cartoon. And it really is interesting because a lot of you are busy. You're busy fighting the war, daily production, getting the product in, getting it produced, getting it out to the client. But have you really looked at what the modern solutions are that are out there? And I find, today in this ever-inclusive time frame, we still have a lot of people that just don't have the time to spend doing research as to what others are doing to solve these problems. And so this cartoon speaks to an ancient salesman with a contract in hand trying to sell a Gatling gun to a war campaign that's centered around swords and spears. What a game changer that would be. Would he have a competitive advantage with that Gatling gun? I think we can all realize that they would. And, we live in a business climate today where there's lots of opportunities to learn. There's shows like the MEE clusters, Smart MTX coming up in May, Fab Tech, and all of these different shows where we could learn about technologies that could help us. So if you're looking to improve your operations, there are many different ways to get demonstrations that can turn into a learning event for your team that can kickstart your insights as to what is possible. And so that when you really get people sitting down and looking for, some team improvements, suddenly we all have a common language and we have a common understanding as to what that could look like. So the top 4 or 5 items that an ERP system can help you with, in particular, in the context of data, is helping you boost revenue growth. If you can efficiently quote more, just based statistically, you're probably going to win more business. You're also going to be able to manage the pricing and work with clients to turn those things around faster. And sometimes customers are looking for a solution, a partner that has the same sense of urgency that they do. If you can improve productivity, it's less wasted time, less touch time. You heard tack time and other things that Paul was mentioning. And if we can optimize the supply chain by understanding which vendors or dual sourcing or managing with true lead times and understanding how that plays into your schedules without doing anything. As you change a purchase order delivery date, it's changing the production schedule. You definitely are going to be able to enhance your customer experiences and give them expectations. Some of our clients work in projects and the client is constantly changing their specs, but being able to do so efficiently and show the impacts is pretty important. And then ultimately those supplier relationships, we're scrapping a lot of your product now. We're looking at possibly finding a new supplier, but we need you to, come to the table with solutions, not just deliverable timelines, but actually improving the product. So really, this is the heart of smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0, which we can add all kinds of automation, but at the heart of it, we need to have data and quality data. And so being able to, connect all of the devices has never been easier. In fact, I've seen Internet of Things devices starting at $20 to connect to a machine that just monitors that early 1900s press, through to systems today that have PLCs that can give you speeds, feeds, pressures, temperatures, whatever the process of that equipment is. You're going to be able to monitor the characteristics that lead to a higher quality or a more productive output. So all kinds of neat things out there, but the foundation of all of these technologies and the one that brings it all together is ERP. And so, why? Well, it's bringing together a more integrated enterprise. I hear people speak to challenges in their operation, such as, we've got this, 20-cent part holding up a $100,000 order because we forgot to order it on time, or the lead time was not updated from a recent communication, and nobody, we're all doing purchasing. We don't have any specialization, and we don't have one version of the truth, and we don't have a scheduling tool that would bring that to our attention. So, there's those aspects. There's lots of anecdotal evidence that a lot of companies suffer from not having an integrated enterprise. But that quote to cash, if you really want to understand what's happening in your business, do a study and monitor the customer engagement through to quote and order, how many touch points, how it moves to engineering or production, purchasing, follow that order all the way through to shipping. Look at all the touch points. How many different places could it go wrong? And why is there different subsystems that are rekeying? We didn't hire these people to rekey data. Why are we expecting them to do that? So then you look at value streaming. How would we improve these areas? It doesn't have to be in detail. Create a vision, and then focus on measuring overall productivity. If we could improve this by a certain X, what would that look like? And ultimately consistency. So reporting of data may not have to be in an ERP database, but a great place to get started is manually. And so that when you convert that to a more automated manner, people have respect for the fact that it's now saved them a lot of time. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a view of a flow of an end-to-end ERP. And it starts with the fact that you probably need a foundational item such as a bill of material, a part definition with a description. If it's a purchased item, you've attached a vendor to that and what they call that part. And so in some of our clients, it's also a CAD interface, bringing CAD in and integrating it so that they can launch that product quickly. But in order to be successful, we need to be, working with potential clients, finding where we fit, solutioning those, and quoting those solutions, turning those into possible engagements where we're tailoring the product for the client, for my make to order and engineer to order clients, or selling standard product based on standard items that we sell, and that those orders then need to be fulfilled. Sometimes we're looking at historical orders, forecasts, all of that is integrated into ERP. And so the big value of enterprise resource planning has its roots in a term called MRP, Material Requirements Planning. This is the big calculator. It looks at supply. It looks at demand. What do I have in inventory? What do I have coming in next week? What do I have in orders today? When will I need it on the shop floor to produce and make a promise date to my client that we should have all of those operations complete by a certain time? And so that's not just scheduling, that's MRP suggesting purchase orders and production orders at the right times. It also suggests you cancel them if you're bringing too much in or making too much. So it helps you right size your replenishment levels. And so scheduling is really looking in a very integrated manner at capacity planning. Okay, that work center is welding, fabricating, cutting, assembling, painting, whatever that operation is. I have a resource requirement, the machine, the equipment, the raw materials coming in from the next or previous upstream operation. When will it be ready? It'll be here at this point. We can switch over to blue paint now, or we can change the tool to run this assembly or this stamping. So as it moves through, we're looking at all of the operations and figuring out what is the timing that it needs to be available, and it troubleshoots and brings capacity constraints forward, allows you to do what if scenarios, and ultimately smooth the production on the shop floor. That could also mean engineering people as well for project companies. So ultimately, in the shipping world, you know, we're not just going out and saying, hey, is that ready yet? We're actually pulling it forward. We know when it should be complete. We know when it should be at the last operation and should be ready to come to the shipping area, or we're able to pick it because we know it's in inventory. So all of that is handled, as well as receiving and handling those arrived versus received, so that it sets up the financial implications. And then to that, obviously, finance. So the things I owe money for versus the receivables. Quality is all part of the system as well. So as I receive things, I'm doing inspection. Did it pass or fail? And throughout the operations of your production, it also is pass or fail. So on the shop floor, you could be barcoding and reporting production, or just telling a human interface, machine interface, I made one, or doing Kanban work to improve your flow. So why ERP? What's it going to help me with? What it's really all about is the concept of what you can measure, you can manage, back to the start. And so that quote to cash cycle, forget about the product and the modules and the capabilities. Think about what is the end game that you're looking for. You're really looking for consistent processes that enable that real-time costing, tracking, and scheduling. It means that each department can have their metrics. So customer service, looking at things like quotes and opportunities, margin analysis on the things we quote, and the potential profitability. Looking at sales performance by product, engineering, supply chain, vendor performance, production. Not just having a schedule, but how did we do against the schedule that we had? And, you know, what utilization in the future? Where will my bottleneck be? And how many, you know, do I run over time? Do I add people to it? Do I have cross-trained resources? All of that comes into focus. Quality, shipment, financial metrics that run the business become more automatic, and cash flow, you know, knowing what's coming in, knowing what's going out, and ultimately managing a profitable business. Another way of looking at this is really, it's about building your best practices for managing the business. We always ask people, what does your ideal dashboard look like? How would you measure things if you had access to all of this information? And so creating that vision is really key. So some of our clients, not some of our clients, most of our clients are running the scheduling, and they're seeing all the jobs either from a departmental centric or a job centric. So this job is running out until July 29th. About noon, it looks like it's going to be completed. The first operation is shear, then notch, then form, then deburr. And some of these are quick cycle times. Some are going to take a day and a half. Some are going to take minutes. And we're going to get it ready to ship. And we can see all of the steps and the capacity related to it. We can also switch that to a utilization. So what does our utilization numbers show us? It's showing us the capacity versus actual, and it's giving us a percentage of load. And when you want to look at real-time profitability, using that red, yellow, green, and blue, we're highlighting where you're over cost. And in a typical or a modern ERP, right-click on the job, drill down, track the details into any level of detail. Was it material? Was it labor? Who was the person doing the labor? Why was there scrap? Why was there machine downtime? All of these can be answered with the right data. And if you're a little more graphical, you can apply pictures to statuses. So green, blue, orange, looking at job status and flow. Some people are monitoring machinery flow. being able to look at your sales geographically, look at salespersons and their quota, and are they hitting their goals? What do we need to do to enable that? Looking at my AP and what I owe over time, my AR aging, who's the culprit on the customer base. So ultimately, you're really talking about a library, almost a shopping cart of what data is important to you. You can configure to monitor. And so if you do a good job of capturing data, then you can put these reporting widgets centric to your main menu and keep your team focused on it. Each department will now have a set of metrics that you're going to focus them on, and understanding what conditions they need to act and what conditions they can focus on other things. So as we get close to wrapping this up, I just want to impart some important information, and that is, we said earlier that's not one and done, it's a continuous improvement. And so if you think about it as a journey, it's not a matter of flipping a switch and all of these capabilities are put into place at the same time. ERP systems have worked. I worked for the man who wrote the very first system over 50 years ago, and the same challenges he had back then in introducing this new concept exist today. It's cultural. How do we get your people? It's not a matter of if the system will work. The bigger question is, can we get your people to make it work in your organization? And that comes back to leadership and getting things done through others, but it also comes back to creating a team effort. And ultimately, we talk about it in terms of change management. The idea that you have a vision, that you have a game plan, that you're engaging your staff to understand it, you just can't do that overnight. You need people to participate. And you have to respect that they have a lot of years of experience in doing the production role, or doing the finance role, or doing the purchasing, engineering, sales, whatever those roles are, because this will touch every element of your organization. Ideally and essentially, it's there to create productivity. But recognize you do not need to turn on processes for companies that are 10 times your size and trip over a dollar to pick up a dime. In other words, putting more effort in where you get no value. So finding that balance means that it's not, there's no cookie cutter approach, but the systems work. It's just a matter of how much and how sophisticated do you wish to go with processes for your organization. So I'll leave you with this parting thought. If we have good data and we're measuring, we absolutely can manage better. So how do we put that measurement, that data, into action? And how do we turn that into something that has a continuous payback to help the company prosper? So ultimately, there's no perfection, but working and chipping away at that goal is always going to be better than waiting for perfection. All right, thank you. I thought I'd just open it up now for a little bit of Q&A for anybody that's on the call. And hopefully you've been putting some questions in the chat group there. Any takers on the chat?
Thanks. Thanks again, John and Paul. We do have some good questions in here. Actually, I got one interesting one here. I'll start off with this one, and I'll pose it to both of you. We track everything in Google Sheets. Could we move this data into an ERP environment? So I'll let John answer that one.
Sure. So, thank goodness you're starting to capture data, and that master data or that production data is going to be very important to moving toward a formal system. The answer is absolutely. The tools I can speak to from where I live, which is the Epicor software, but it's popular amongst many systems, is the idea that there are templates that you can import data. So what is my part number, my customer, or customer master file, part master file? And so you think of a part, the description, the unit of measure, quantity on hand and inventory, all that information is great information and absolutely valuable. So pretty straightforward. Used to be in my beginning of my career over 35 years ago, we had to write programs to extract it and then programs to feed it in. Today, it's a template, populate it, paste it in, and update it.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. I hope that answers the question to our audience. I've got another one here. I'll pose to both of you. This might be kind of a bit of both of you. How can I measure my cash conversion time? And would this be something that could be replaced in QuickBooks?
Well, I'll start with cash conversion. Measuring cash conversion time is easy. It's a matter of keeping track of when you got the order in hand and when you wrote the invoice. And basically, I'll say specifically in project-based manufacturing, it would be then you would have a pretty good time for what is the average number of days it takes to go from getting a project in hand to get the invoice out. And then the counterpoint or the argument might be, well, every project is different. But then I would say to that, over the course of a year where you're getting the same product, you're getting the same mix and variability, small projects and big projects, by the time you increase your sample size, that basic KPI for number of days between order received and invoice written will still give you a really good metric on, are you improving your operations? Are you improving the rate at which things go through your plant? So the answer is very easy. Start tracking today.
Thanks, Paul. I've got another question here. This one comes from our audience. It's more around balancing cost effectiveness and value. What is the best ERP? I guess somebody wanting to know kind of about different systems. So I'm going to push that one over to John and see what his thoughts are around this.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. I'll be a little anecdotal at first. I'll say that the best ERP is the one you use. And so it's funny how many companies we come across that have been using a system for a lot of years to a fraction of its capacity. And it reaches a certain point at which we've lost the faith that this is going to do anything for us. It's old, it needs to be replaced. But it's rather sad that they really never adopted a continuous improvement methodology. They got it up and running, and then they just stagnated. But I think the right answer for your question is, it's the one that, for the same reasons of the challenges I just mentioned, it's the one that you get your team around and the one that fits your business. So as I mentioned earlier, you really need a team approach. And so by creating departmental champions who own their business area, bringing those people through a demonstration process of what's out there, preliminary, get them excited, and then start to research what more could we be doing. So again, back to that, the one you use, it really comes down to the one you own it. When you own it, it isn't just buying it, it's actually having a vision as to where the value is. And that is something that you develop in conjunction with, a vendor-based software review. Anyone worth their salt should come in and do a discovery, look at your challenges, present solutions, but then you as a customer need to inspire your staff to suggest, hey guys, if we're going to do this, we're not going to do this for the short term. We need to do this for 3, 4, 5x what we're doing today, or 5, 10 years from now, to have a plan that extends beyond, or a vision that extends beyond our short term. So I don't know that that's a simple answer. I see another question here. That's a product, an ERP product, Odoo.
Yes,
Odoo?
yeah, Odoo, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it. It's so, being in this business a long time, I've owned a software company. I've worked for some of the bigger players, and as a partner for the last 17 years with Epicor, I'm a little bit biased, so please take that with a grain of salt. But I'm open enough to realize nobody owns the whole market. In fact, the biggest player owns less than 5% of it. So there's lots of solutions to this problem. The problem comes in when people talk about easy, quick, and cheap. Pick two, and the quality of the product, the quality of the solution usually is at question. So you can quickly move from QuickBooks and spreadsheets to something that is just marginally above it. And I'm not here to knock Odoo, but you need to look beyond your current needs, look at what other players in your space are doing, and there's chances are good that they're looking a little beyond that. And for the same, my favorite saying is, you should never buy the cheapest product, because when you buy the cheapest product, you may find out that it doesn't do what you expected to. And if you saved a little extra for the effort, you would actually have a product that works for you. And that was John Ruskin in 1812. So he knew what he was talking about. The idea here is I've had many clients spend a year or two trying to implement something, only to find out that we didn't think about the service provider, the support we would get. It doesn't address our traceability and our quality. It doesn't do engineering CAD integration. So those little things, those little gotchas, the worst time to find out those happen is about a year after you've gone live with this thing, and suddenly you're starting to take off with your business, and now you've got to completely change it out because it's not going to last for you. So that's a consideration. I would stack it up against another product in your market, or that addresses your market, in order to do a fair comparison. There's a time and a place for cheap and cheerful, but if you're betting your business on it, you probably look around. I'm sure your president drives a nice car. Any car can get you from A to B. There's reasons that people choose that, and there's reason that they invest in good equipment. So this should be no different.
I'm going to let the next one, Paul gets to start off on. This is our last question of the day. And this one comes from one of our attendees here. Years ago, our company was shopping for the right ERP for our operations. It was very difficult to find one that had the right fit. Many were just massively outside our budget. We then explored making our own and did that. It turned into less of an ERP and more of a document control and planning tool that also provided statistical process metrics, a 5-year development assisted with SRE and ER, like with Shred. Years later, now we are again examining the shortcomings of what we have, revisiting the investment of ERP. This webinar is perfect timing for starting the process. So thank you. So I think just any comments around that, maybe Paul?
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly say, technology is one thing, but the application of technology is usually the difference between great success and frustrating, expensive failure. So never forget or fail to realize that the application of the technology is perhaps even more important than the technology itself. Great technology poorly applied will leave you frustrated, but even perhaps weaker technology properly applied might yield a better result. And that goes back to John's quote about continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection.
Thanks, Paul. I think we're at time. So
if anyone's interested in learning more on concepts, we have a YouTube channel. I want to thank the people at the MEE cluster. I do recommend that you stop by the Smart MTX event. Give me the date again, David. It's
May 15th. Yeah,
May 15th. We're going to be bringing
16th.
case studies for these business use cases. We're going to bring case studies and stories, and you're going to hear from real live clients who've actually achieved these results. And I think that's really important, because there's a lot of talk of technology for technology's sake, and it's sexy, but it's when you put those things to work for you and start to see the value in your business and see the continuous return on investment, not just that first spike of a reduced inventory, but how things like regular scheduling updates can really save time.
Well, hey, we appreciate everyone's time today. And to conclude this, yeah, just a quick plug. May 15th, 16th. May 15th, come see these gentlemen talk. They'll be talking, I think it's around 10 a.m. if I'm not mistaken, 10 or 10:30. So all the information is on the Smart MTX website. Check us out for our next event, which I believe is happening here in the next couple of weeks for webinars. And you can go to www.mecluster.com for more information on that.
.ca?
Or .ca, sorry. Yes, .ca. And yes, so thank you so much for your time today. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you.